Something that machines will not be able to do is be curious.
ChatGPT can look like it's smart because it's doing all these, it's saying smart things, but it doesn't really know what it's saying. You can program curiosity.
The machine, you're training it to be curious based on the extent that you are, the human, is curious at that moment, right? So it's not organic curiosity, right? And I think a large part of what really fuels curiosity is creativity. We were born very curious, right? One of the first questions we ask as children is, why, mom? Why, dad? Like, why? Why does this work the way it does?
Children, they just have this amazing ability to come up with different solutions, to use their imagination to solve problems. You give them these problems and they can just come up with so many different solutions and iterations of things because their imagination is just unlocked at any given moment. All right, welcome back everybody to Emergence now. We got Dhiren here, still in Chicago, and Nikos Acuña, still in Chicago, but soon to be in Dubai very soon. So today we are moving from the topic of spirituality and productivity into the core of intelligence. 3 reasons why you're smarter than you think. Dhiren, why are we smarter than we think? Because I can immediately think of a reason why we're not. So before I combat you on that, what's your premise here?
So, I mean, when we think about intelligence and being smarter, I mean, there are many different forms of intelligence, right? There's creativity, there's analytical intelligence, there's musical, creativity, emotional intelligence, linguistic, physical intelligence. And so that's just some of many forms of intelligence. But with the advent of AI, a large part of intelligence is being taken up by artificial intelligence, right? A lot of what we used to, lean on in terms of or define as intelligence is going to be taken up, and AI is going to be able to do that or demonstrate a higher level of intelligence than humans can, right? So how do we think about intelligence in the new world? How do we think about being smart? And so what I want to talk about today is what are some of the ways that we can be smarter? How can we demonstrate intelligence in a new way? So, what does it mean to be smarter? Or what are 3 reasons why we are smarter than we think? The first is something that machines will not be able to do is be curious, right? It's that curiosity of why is it that idea worked and this didn't? And really, looking under the hood to try to understand what differentiates that idea from this idea, right? And just being really, really curious. That's a form of intelligence that's one reason why we are smarter than we think, right? We were born very curious, right? One of the first questions we asked as children is, why, mom? Why, dad? Like, why? Why does this work the way it does? Like, why do I have to do that? Like, just really understanding the why behind why we do what we do or why certain things work the way they work.
Does it need to be actual curiosity or can it be mimicked curiosity? Because the whole notion around AI right now is that you can basically mimic intelligence. So it looks like ChatGPT can look like it's smart because it's doing all these, it's saying smart things, but it doesn't really know what it's saying. You can program curiosity. You can make the output just break down some answer that you give and then ask like 10 questions as to why you're doing it. So you can program curiosity. Why does it need to be actual
It's not organic.
Curiosity?
It's not organic curiosity, right?
Okay.
And if you're programming curiosity, then it's, again, coming from humans, right? You're programming it into the the machine, you're training it to be curious based on the extent that you are, the human is curious at that moment, right? So it's not organic curiosity, right? And I think a large part of what really fuels curiosity is creativity, right? It's, asking that question because we're actually seeing it from a very different perspective, right? We're not just taking it for face value. Because we're coming from, a creative mindset, we're even able to, that's putting us in a position to be able to ask why, right? As opposed to when we are thinking in a very one-dimensional way, right, where there's no creativity, then we're not even really prompted by our environment to be curious. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that resonate with you?
It does. Yeah. I
because
get what you're saying.
You're very creative, right?
Sure.
And so let me ask you, as a creative person, right, how important is curiosity as a form of intelligence?
Everything that I've done that was reasonably creative starts with a question that I feel is important. So yes.
Yeah. And the second reason why we're smarter than we think, is around being open-minded. Like just being open-minded to a new possibility, a new perspective. Recently I got my natal chart read. Have you ever had your natal chart read?
I did a while ago.
Yeah. And so I got my natal chart read, and I discovered that Aries and Pisces both exist in my house. And I realized that, or I discovered that the Aries side, which is fire, conviction, persistence, pushing, creating, setting goals, and the Pisces side, which is represented by water, the more empathetic, more understanding, more compassionate, they both exist. And so in the past, when I've been in situations where I'm interacting with my kids or my spouse or a client, there's that tension, that conflict inside me, wherein there's a part of me that wants to take a different approach, right? A more assertive, a more definitive approach, while a more fiery approach, while there's a part of me that wants to take a more empathetic, more compassionate, more loving, right? And there was this tension, and I never understood it until I actually got my natal chart read, and I saw that this is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And so that open-mindedness now puts me in a position wherein I understand what's going on inside me. So that level of self-awareness is now elevated. And so when in those situations, I now know that, that's what's going on. And I'm able to keep an open mind and not take one direction over another and just being neutral.
Totally.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps to just not know. And again, when I hear you talk, it's almost like you need to emulate the mind of a child, because the mind of a child isn't developed and it doesn't have all of these convolutions in the brain that make us who we are. And we just become so cynical and skeptical as you get older. And you almost have to, I talk about unlearning a lot and how we have to unlearn so many different things to have access to that different quantum state. And children, they just have this amazing ability to come up with different solutions, to use their imagination to solve problems. It's like, oh, this isn't a bed. This isn't a bed. This isn't a table. This is a spaceship. And you would give them these problems and they can just come up with so many different solutions and iterations of things because their imagination is just unlocked at any given moment.
There's no limit.
Yeah, there's just no limit to it. So I feel like that's definitely a component of it. But recognizing that and your state of awareness feels like it's also equally as important almost, right? And then that other side of you, which is, okay, there's the creative side that's kind of in la la land almost. Yeah. And then there's the other side of you that is just like, oh, I got to get stuff done. I feel that too. I feel that.
There's that tension.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that I'm aware of it, I'm a lot more curious. I'm a lot more open-minded. And it just opens up a realm of possibility. And I'm also able to stay a lot more grounded and calm because now I know I have that level of awareness. Yeah, so it's been revealing.
Okay.
It's been extremely revealing. The third reason why we're smarter than what we think is resilience, right? It's being able to persevere in the face of adversity. And when we're able to persevere in the face of adversity, it unlocks possibility. It unlocks imagination. It unlocks this space that we would normally not have access to. And so resilience is something, again, a part of maybe the physical side of intelligence, right? But also cognitive. It's also, in the realm of the willpower and the determination and grit and, being driven by passion, right? And again, that then puts us in a position wherein we're able to persevere, we're able to push through, we're able to move toward our goals in an authentic, self-compassionate way.
Do you feel like some folks are born resilient, or is that completely learned?
Learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely learned. I mean, when you were born, right, you were born with no beliefs.
Yeah,
right?
You're a blank slate.
You're a blank slate. And so if you were born and let's say you were in a time capsule for the first 30 years of your life, right? And after 30 years, that time capsule opens and you see something that we would define as good or bad. Let's say you bear witness to theft that happens in front of you. You would not know heads from tails, right? It's only through acquiring beliefs from our environment, from teachers, from our parents, from our siblings, that we form certain beliefs that distinguish bad from good, right from wrong. And so because you're a blank slate, you don't have certain beliefs and you don't have certain dispositions, you don't have biases. And so grit and resilience is something that we acquire from our environment. We are formed, we're conditioned and programmed by our environment when we're put in certain situations that either develop that resilience or that grit or it doesn't.
Based on how this conversation is evolving, I'm getting the sense that you are expanding the definition of intelligence a bit to incorporate other traits like resilience. I would also add maybe humility there too, then, if we're looking at this broader definition. And the reason for that is because, and this is where I was going to push back earlier, is because you had said that, okay, you're probably smarter than you think. I feel like there's some benefit in thinking that you're dumber than you think, especially if you're if you're just like an intellectual and you read a lot of books, because I feel like the know-it-alls are so annoying because of the fact that they feel like they have this just complete comprehensive view of how the world operates and it's their way or the highway. And then it even like transcends into dogma in some ways. And we know what happens with dogma. I mean, what goes up must come down, right? Especially when it comes with an egocentric type of personality. And so I like to exercise humility here, is just that there's
Beautiful.
just so much in the entire world that exists and beyond that I feel like I don't know nearly enough. And the more that I learn, the less I actually know. And so I just want to kind of keep myself on check there by fundamentally understanding that.
Yeah. And that's why I think humility is loosely connected to curiosity, right? As long as we're curious, we're aware that we don't know everything, right? And, it's always day zero, especially with entrepreneurship. It's always day one, every day, right? What can I learn? And there's so much to learn, right? There's so much in the world is moving at such a frenetic pace that things are changing, we're changing. And to maintain that humility, maintain that curiosity is essential.
Hey there. We're taking a quick break from the show to let you know that if you'd like to invite Dhiren or Nikos to speak at your next event on topics ranging from emergence and the inner game to the future of AI, we've got you covered. Simply email us at info@emergencenowpod.com. Once again, that's info@emergencenowpod.com. Now, let's dive back to the show.
So where do we take it from here? Like, what should we actually do? Like, what can somebody take away from this, from the perspective of, okay, I know I'm smart. I'm already well read. I have like a ton of experience. I've been in the space for like 20 years. Like, what do you do with this knowledge? Like, how can you implement it? Or maybe it's not implementing it. Maybe it's just a recognition. Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's a recognition. It's a recognition that, like you said, redefining what it means to be smart, right? And these are the 4 attributes that, we want to get our listeners to think about, right? 4 attributes of being intelligent in the new environment that we live in, right? That we operate in, where a big part of what we put a lot of weight on, what we put a lot of value on, is now there's a system that exists that can actually handle that for us. It can take care of that part of it. So now, how can we actually leverage our innate intelligence of being more curious, being more open-minded, being more humble, exercising humility, and knowing that there's so much to learn, right? And being more resilient, right? And trying to put ourselves in a position wherein, and I feel like, when you think about these 4 things, when they come together, they're all connected in a beautiful way, right? When you're more curious, or when you're curious, you are more humble, right? And when you're more humble, you have that almost that willpower, that drive to be more resilient, right? And when you're more resilient, you're more open-minded, right? And you can pick that up, but it's almost like, I just had a download. I need to put this in a somewhat of a circle, in a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a Venn diagram that basically moves from one to the other. Okay. And I'm sure there's some connection that can form visually, but I could see it. I could see how it all connects.
Right. That's super interesting. What about empathy? Does that play a role here too? Is that part of this intelligence framework?
EQ. Yeah, absolutely. Probably more essential than ever.
Yeah, it's interesting how you started the conversation with what AI is destined to commoditize. It's almost like, let's prepare humans in an era of AI get to a place that's more and more difficult to quantify, to compute, to get to these predictive outcomes from an AI perspective. And it becomes kind of these aspects of qualia, right? The things that are really hard to put in a table or a spreadsheet. It's the things that are really difficult to just pinpoint via math. And it's the nuance, right? We were talking about that as like the key word. It's like, how can you convey in this moment just like the most humanistic expression that is like so tied with both this nuance of, oh, I want to kill you right now. Oh, but I love you so much. And there's kind of like that dichotomy of it. And there's empathy there. And there's like, and that's part of being human. And I do believe that we are quite a ways from seeing AIs express that convoluted kind of really nuanced emotion that's just so pure, that's just part of humanity. Because again, it's like, how are you programming these intelligences? It's one or the other. It's binary. It's either this or that. It, not it. Am I sad? Am I happy? It's either this. It can't be both. And that's why I feel like moving into this new era where data is going to be the key and emotional intelligence is going to be the key, you can capture that nuance through, I would argue, dynamic data objects. So planting the seed for kind of the things that I'm building in my life and also the companies that I'm building. There's definitely a way to embed these things in the systems that we have, but also help humans learn more about their own emotions. And then again, figure out that spectrum for one or the other, and then ultimately transcend that and say, for every keyword, beautiful, can I make that how beautiful? And then there's nuance that exists somewhere in the spectrum where, maybe in politics, there's that day where, you can see the other side because of the fact that you recognize that, there's limitations to your own thinking and that there's always an endless realm of possibilities. One of which is, if I'm so hard knocks about this one fact that I believe is fact, the opposite must immediately be true.
Yeah. A mentor of mine recently said, never believe anything 100%.
Yeah. There's no such thing as perfect information, right?
Yeah. Always leave some room for the possibility that you're wrong or that there could be a better way.
There's always a better way.
There's always a better way.
There's always, And that's where I was going with the mind fixating on a specific way to frame up any kind of situation when really, and there's a difference, I would say, and this deserves another episode. It's not just intelligence, but what's the distinction between intelligence and imagination? When you're thinking again of all of the different potentialities of something, then everything becomes a process and it's always changing. That's actually what it is. It's not what it is in this moment. It's always what it could be. So that could also be a form of intelligence. Yes. Yeah. What do you grow into, or what are the possibilities? And then it becomes less, again, about outcomes that you're trying to drive. It's about how do you cultivate the right kind of environment for growth so that you grow into something in a very positive and abundant way.
Beautiful. All right, my friend. That's the 4 ways that we can be smarter, but still maintain a high level of humility. And I really like what you said about emotional intelligence and how, in the current environment that we're in, where AI is destined to commoditize certain aspects of intelligence, emotional intelligence becomes even more paramount, right? That is what truly makes us human. And that connection, that human to human connection that's driven by empathy and compassion becomes even more paramount. And that's intelligence. That's a very high level of intelligence, and it comes with self-awareness.
Amen to that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We will catch you on the next one.
Catch you guys later. Thank you for tuning in to Emergence Now, where we explore the emerging trends, technologies, and ideas that are shaping our world today for you to discover yourself. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained valuable insights that you can apply in your own life. If you want to stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media, where we share additional content, engage with our community, and keep the conversation going. Thanks again for listening to Emergence Now, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode.